We will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight. The inspirational message from Bill Pullman's President Whitmore in the 1996 film Independence Day. Happy July, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Everything Zen. Here we'll discuss everything in the Zenescope universe, from grim fairy tales to myths and legends, and so much more. This is Zenescope. I'm your host, Mark Sells, and we're happy to have you back with us over the summer for our Gretel-themed July 2021 podcast. It's hard to believe it's July already. Did you have a great 4th? Were you able to enjoy some good food and company, as well as some fireworks? This month, we've got some fireworks of our own for you in the form of new products and a 4-day virtual beach con. So if you can't make it to the beach this summer, we'll bring the beach to you. It's going to be lots of fun with Ralph, Amber, Jason, and Chris. And speaking of Chris, like Gretel, he's escaped from the witch in the forest with a handsome stash of prizes for those podcast Word of the Month entries, all focused on Gretel. Our fun facts guru Amber Curtis will share some Van Helsing tidbits linked to the sci-fi series based on Zenescope's very own Liesel Van Helsing. We'll be speaking with Zenescope's newly anointed publisher, Dave Franchini, about the origins and the future of Gretel. And later in the program, we'll be visiting with one of the stars from the upcoming James Gunn directed film, The Suicide Squad. So stay put and don't be tempted by life-size gingerbread houses. Another rousing edition of Everything Zen is on the way. Tomorrow morning, very early, let us take the 2 children out into the forest where it is thickest. There, we'll light them a fire and give each of them an extra piece of bread, and we'll go off to our work and leave them on their own. They won't find their way back home, and we'll be rid of them. The story of Hansel and Gretel, or Little Brother and Little Sister, goes back to 1812 with our favorite German authors, the Brothers Grimm. It begins with a woodcutter and his wife, the children's stepmother, who intentionally abandon their children time after time in the woods in the hope that someone else will take them in because the children eat too much and they're unable to take care of them. Talk about great parenting. Fully aware of this plan, Hansel uses white pebbles to help he and his sister return home. And it works for a while, but eventually he runs out of the pebbles and uses breadcrumbs instead, which end up getting eaten by birds, and thus Hansel and Gretel end up getting lost deep in the forest. That's when they end up at a strange cottage in the woods, a cottage that is made of gingerbread and lined with cookies and cakes and all kinds of sweet confections. As they begin to eat the house, an old woman appears and lures them inside, locking them into cages. Turns out she's a witch and aims to eat the children. But Hansel and Gretel outsmart the witch over time. Gretel shoves her into her own oven where she burns to a crisp, and the children return home to their father with a wealth of jewels, and they live happily ever after. Interestingly, when the children return, their stepmother is nowhere to be found. She's died mysteriously. And historians believe the stepmother and the witch might actually be, metaphorically, the same woman. By the way, what's up with these fairy tales and the evil stepmother? We've seen it time and again, from Cinderella to Snow White to The Six Swans, and even more recent novels such as Howl's Moving Castle and Piers Anthony's Cruel Lie. So if you're ever reading a fairy tale and a stepmother appears, there's a pretty good chance she's up to no good. Over the years, Hansel and Gretel has made its way to film adaptations, from Tim Burton's 1983 television special to Tommy Wirkola's 2013 version, Hansel and Gretel: Witch Hunters, starring Jeremy Renner and Gemma Arterton. And it achieved quite a bit of success on stage as an opera, created by Engelbert Humperdinck. Most importantly, for all you computer buffs out there, the navigation element that allows users to keep track of their location in programs, documents, and web pages was actually inspired by Hansel and Gretel, the Trail of Breadcrumbs. In the Zenescope universe, the story of Hansel and Gretel is first told in Grimm Fairy Tales number 3. It's a story that is shared by Selah Mathers with two siblings, Gina and Hank, that mirrors their current situation. However, in this version, before the two can escape from the gingerbread house, Hansel is killed by the witch, who is then pushed into the fireplace by Gretel. Gretel becomes a witch hunter, and as she consumes the hearts of witches, she is given special powers, specifically the power of premonition. Later, when she has a vision of the end of the world and attempts to stop it, she comes face to face once more with the witch who murdered Hansel and cursed her. On this podcast, we'll be delving into the myths and legends of Gretel in Chris's Corner. We'll be joined by Zenescope's very own Dave Franchini to share his early experiences working on the Gretel storyline. Amber Curtis will be stopping by to share some fun facts about everyone's favorite vampire hunter, Van Helsing. And we'll be speaking with the incredible Mayling Ng and learning about martial arts and some of her favorite activities, films, and action heroes, as well as her character, Mongal, the alien warlord featured in next month's The Suicide Squad. We're laying down a track of breadcrumbs so you don't get lost. This edition of Everything Zen is moving on to the next chapter with the podcast Word of the Month.
Welcome, witches and warlocks, to our secret coven. I have completed a brand new hex spell that I wish to share with you all. The Zenescope Council of Witches is launching a podcast Word of the Month contest for the month of July. Whenever you hear this sound during the podcast, we'll reveal a secret code or phrase. Email us at info@zenescope.com with that word or phrase, and you will unlock a powerful incantation, a promo code to use on your next purchase on Zenescope.com. Remember, just one submission per person, or you'll be cursed. We will also be doing a raffle drawing from a cauldron for one lucky winner from all of the podcast Word of the Month submissions. Our grand prize is a limited to 100 collectible Van Helsing vs. the League of Monsters number 6, cover F, by Eric Basildua. We are also giving away 3 second place prizes from those podcast submissions, a limited to 350 collectible Grimm Fairy Tales Volume 2, issue number 37, cover L, by Jamie Tyndall and Ula Moss. So, listen carefully and email us at info@zenescope.com for your chance to win. Back to you, Mark.
Thanks, Chris. The podcast contest runs throughout all of July, so you can send an email to info@zenescope.com any day or time up until midnight on Saturday, July 31st. The winners will all be contacted the first week in August. For our next segment, we're going to go to the dark side of the Zenescope world with a strong female character with a terrifying origin story who is known for eating witches' hearts, gaining supernatural powers, and becoming a bit of a monster herself. Of course, we're talking about Gretel. To dive deeper into the very first pitch session, the evolution of her character, and where her journey is going, Chris Samson sat down with Dave Franchini to talk all about Gretel, witches, cults, and mysticism. Let's listen in to their conversation now.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Chris Samson, and we have a special segment for Everything Zen. We have Dave Franchini, our fearless leader, editor, writer extraordinaire. We're here to talk about a very special and beloved character, Gretel. Dave Franchini is an editor and writer at Zenescope Entertainment. In addition to creating excellent titles such as Belle Beast Hunter and Princess Ninjas, Dave is also credited with co-plotting the story for the Gretel series and wrote 2 one-shots, Belle, Hearts and Minds, and Grimm Fairy Tales Myths and Legends Quarterly, Gretel, Witch Hunter. Welcome to the show, Dave.
Well, thanks for having me, man. That's pretty accurate. All of your statements. No, thanks for having me. I love Gretel too, and so I'm ready to dive in and tell you what you need to know or what you want to know about what I can tell you.
Excellent. And for me, this is such an honor because you know, Dave, we talk about it a lot. I love Gretel.
Almost like too much now. I know you love Gretel. Gretel's a really cool character. So, what's not to love? Especially if you like more of the dark, twisted, like more of our roots. Like she kind of fills in that void that we haven't had for a while of going a little little more gritty, a little more grimy and violent. So,
Like you said before, it comes full circle. She really pushes the envelope. She dives into these really awesome
witches' hearts.
Witches' heart, yes. She dives into witches' hearts, into classic horror conventions, like cannibalism and cults and
kidnapping. And just like a little bit of mystery, a little bit of like mysticism. Like so, like it kind of hits a little like of everything that we kind of are as a company. Strong female, deadly villains. So I mean, like we try to hit everything with Gretel.
Yeah, that's a great summary. And just to fill in the gaps for anyone who's listening and is not quite sure who Gretel is or what she's about, very, very short elevator pitch. She's a witch that hunts other witches, hags and warlocks, and she gains their power by eating their hearts. And she will stop at nothing until every last witch is destroyed. Dave, I want to get into the first question. So we have a long storied roster of original characters such as Robin Hood and Van Helsing, and Gretel, in comparison, is pretty new. What was the backstory to the creation of her character and her aesthetic? Were there any major influences or research or inspirations?
I mean, in the beginning, it was like, I kind of wanted like something that we had. Like we had Wonderland. Wonderland was really dark, really twisted. You saw like people getting ripped apart and like, and it was just like, it was a lot, but it wasn't too much. And it was just, it kind of messed with you visually of like what you can do in comics and like some of just the darker ideas. And I was like, we haven't had that in forever. So I started thinking about like, what if we did like Gretel, who was like the actual Gretel kid, her and Hansel, and she had to like, she was forced to eat her own brother's heart to survive, which then in turn cursed her to become a witch and become what she hated now. A little bit of like a Wolverine and a Highlander mixed together. But it was just to kind of bring us back to that dark part of our universe where we haven't had that in a while. Like Robin Hood, she takes on like dark creatures, but she's more of like a work for hire kind of vigilante. And then Van Helsing was taking on like the classic monsters, like your vampires, your zombies, your werewolves, like Frankenstein's on stuff. So we needed somebody to kind of take in that mystical side. So I kind of was like, all right, like, let's go crazy with it. Like, what if she eats hearts? What if like she's ripped, like you see her ripping like witches apart, and then the tattoos on her body are basically, it's like almost like Mother Nature and Earth scarring her for the wrong she's doing to nature, which is eating people's hearts and cannibalism and also being a monster herself. And I was like, Joe and Ralph will never approve this. And then we went to our story meeting, and it was funny because I remember I was telling, like, before I went to the meeting, I was telling like Ashley about it, and like Chris, who is like does our art direction and graphic design, and like they were like, oh, it's cool. And I was like, yeah, I don't know if it'll ever get made. I'm like, so I brought it to Joe and Ralph, and I was like, I don't know if you guys like this, and then what do you think? And I told them exactly what I kind of told you, where she's eating hearts and doing all this crazy stuff. And they're like, yeah, that's cool. Let's do that. And then I was like, oh, all right. Like I didn't really have anything past that besides like the idea. And then, so then we kind of sat at our story meeting and really fleshed it out. Like, so it's like we kind of went through and we tore into like, how's it going to start? And when do we get the Gretel flashback and who she's going to be taking on? And like, we kind of worked through every little step and process through there. And we added in like her mentor, and we added in her new sidekick Caliber. Like at the time, she didn't really have a name. She didn't really have a full backstory. We just had her as another witch hunter hunting witches why wouldn't she hunt Gretel? Because she's a witch as well. So it kind of just evolved from that idea of like, we wanted something dark again. And then Joe and Ralph being like, yeah, let's do that. And then making it from there.
That's great. And it really switches things up. It feels a niche that we haven't done in a while. And it's visually striking, especially like the origin story. Like I reread it I haven't read it in a while, and I was really surprised at how gory it was, and I enjoy that stuff, and it's really refreshing. So you mentioned
I love the gore. It's refreshing.
Yeah,
like to be bathed in blood. Wonderful times.
I mean,
I know.
Entertainment is escapism, and that's why.
Well, we got to hit every corner. Like
exactly.
some people love to see that stuff. It's almost like a Saw type thing, or like a little, not as like torture porny, but it was more like, it was just something jarring and something we can do with comics that isn't really done.
And it still harkens back to like the classic Grizz fairy tales and
exactly.
folklore that that started the company. So it was all planned out, Dave. You're too modest.
That happened by awesomeness.
Yeah. You marked on a cool point. So, like, Gretel is fundamentally a character who is turned into a monster, but hunts other monsters like her. And her motivations, they're deep and complex like any great character, whether it's for revenge or redemption, salvation. Would you consider Gretel a hero or an anti-hero? Do her ends justify the means?
I mean, she's a little bit of both. I mean, she's a hero in the fact that she saves children and she kills witches and people who are doing evil things. But at the same time, she does them for her own benefit. She doesn't, like, a little bit. Like, she does them more, like, she's hunting these witches, not just because they're hunting, like taking children. It's more like she's wants to get her revenge on that. And as the stories evolve and, like, over the years, we show that she cares a little bit more about people as we go, and it's not just all about her revenge, but a lot of times it is. So it depends on the story if she's a hero or anti-hero, but I mean, she always rides the line in between both because she's doing horrible things to horrible creatures to stop horrible things from happening. So I guess in the end, I guess you can look at her as a full-time hero. I mean, we haven't really gone into a story where it takes the other side of the line, where maybe she hunts a witch who isn't killing kids, but she's just hunting a witch because it's a witch. Which is kind of like contradictive because she would then in turn would want to kill herself. I would say more like way we portray her, she'd be more of a hero.
Yeah, but a hero who gets her hands dirty, quite
literally.
Yeah, yeah. And and every hero needs like something to support them, like a sidekick or an equal. And you mentioned Calabar. In the more recent stories, they're this tag team. They travel the world, which is kind of like a supernatural kind of vibe.
Yeah.
So can you tell us more about her creation? Why is she integral to the story?
I mean, in the beginning, it was a little loose. Like, we just kind of wanted another character in there to kind of throw a wrench in Gretel's plans and also kind of push the story a little bit further. Like, all right, Gretel might have been harmed by these people and turned into a witch. What about a person who wasn't like turned into a witch but suffered almost the same fate as Gretel? And we kind of took that a little bit and we gave it to the writer Ben Mears, and he took it and kind of fleshed her out a little bit more by putting her in the witch camp and like where the witch farm that like where they would feed on kids. So he kind of built off of like our original idea of just kind of creating this hunter and then why this hunter was a hunter. And then and it's kind of evolved after that. It's like, all right, so now she has someone who shares the same ideals as her to a degree. Like she technically should be a little reserved because Gretel's a witch and she's just fully trusting a new person, but she's seen Gretel sacrifice herself to do what's right. So therefore Caliber would accept a little bit more of what Gretel is. And then, they just kind of know that they work well together to eliminate the threats that are causing issues, like to eliminate witches. So, I mean, like, it makes the most sense for them to work together.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then also it kind of like, especially after the first Gretel story, you get a little bit of growth of Gretel, like where she was alone, and then when she's finally reunited with her mentor, she feels a little bit more connected, and then spoiler, like she loses her mentor again after she finds out a lot of stuff, and it's like, it's more like her overcoming her trust issues now, but then also realizing that she doesn't need to be alone, that there's other people that can help her do what she needs to get done.
A lot of what Gretel's story and her reaction and what drives her, it's her working through like the most severe form of PTSD. She ate Hansel's heart, and she's been cursed for like 300 years, and she's been alone a lot of the time. So it helps to have, someone that she can trust, that someone she can actually empathize with, because Calibar went through more or less the same thing.
No, yeah, definitely. And then, I mean, she still holds a little bit back. Like, she doesn't give you read like Dark Watchers and things like that. She doesn't give Calibar everything that's on her mind. But I mean, we'll see how that goes as we go along, and with some stories we might have planned coming up.
Excellent. So we talked about Gretel's allies. Let's talk about her villains. So she's faced some pretty terrifying people like Tituba, like the progenitor of all witches, or Gabriel, like the Warlock zealot. What makes for a compelling villain, especially for a series like Gretel that really pushes the envelope on dark themes and horror conventions, and we're trying to like outdo ourselves here?
Yeah, I mean, like with those villains, they have their own motives. Like that, I mean, that's the biggest thing when you're creating a villain. You don't want to just create like, all right, here's this villain that just loves to do terrible things. Like even with Tituba, she created a family and she watched that family burn, and she realized that the monsters weren't the witches, the monsters were the people. And she wanted to basically create a new world of where like what she considered as the people, the like almost, she's almost like a Magneto type character to the X-Men, where she wants those, like the people that she feels are good and good natured, and what they want to do is basically make the world better. She wanted them to be like a ruling class, but in the end, she gets corrupted by her own vision and her own power, and she does a lot of evil things along the way. So she loses her path along the way to be she taking on the evil that she sees in humans on herself. And that's where a lot of people throughout history like go that way. So, I mean, with her, it was more just the catalyst to get Gretel moving on her path for her destiny. With the Warlock, it was a little bit different. With him, it has the same kind of mentality like with as Tituba, but he didn't really care about. He basically was like, people are done. Like, he didn't care if he was farming people or not. He just wanted to basically create his family, move along, wipe them out, and it's almost like they're similar characters. Tituba has her family. She loses her family. The Warlock creates his family, and he doesn't lose it. So it's basically, if Tituba was successful, this is what the Warlock would become. Mm-hmm. And that was the whole thing. And like, as you see, there's certain things like plotted in the Witch Hunter story that like the heart melts. And there's a book in there that like will, like, hopefully we can tie in later. That'll explain a little bit more about witchcraft and this type of witchcraft, which is a little bit different than Tituba's nature and natural witchcraft. But yeah, I mean, and that's also too, you see the Warlock where he was taken as a child. He was an innocent child. He kind of goes through the similar path as Gretel. He's put through like a literal fire, and he has to come out on the other end, and it shows his scars on the outside where his mother died. He was used as a pawn by the priest.
The corrupt priest, yeah.
Yeah. So, and then he wound up turning on his own people, and then having to basically realize, like, he fell in love, and he realized, like, what he was doing was wrong. Like, he got accepted. He went into, like, being indoctrined into hunting his own people. And this was him coming back from that and basically knowing that what he did was wrong, and now he's trying to right that wrong by basically remaking his family. And I mean, a lot of times witches just don't like humans. They like to eat them, and then they realize that they've been hunted and they've been like ostracized from society because humans fear them.
What I like about the Warlock story is, it's like a dark reflection or a dark foil to Gretel. Like he's trying to find redemption. He's trying to build a family. And Gretel, she found family in Calabar, and both of them were going to do anything to protect it. And like, so it creates like this really awesome dynamic conflict with each other.
Yeah, I mean, you not better than I did. Yeah, it's pretty much they're like the yin yang. Like they basically they're the same type of character, but on different ends of the spectrum. And yes, and then they got it. Whoever, like, they basically got to go head to head, and whoever wins out.
Yeah, Highlander rules, as you said. So I want to take a step back and explore this from a more macro level. In the last several years, there's been a massive resurgence and interest in witches in pop culture. Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, American Horror Story, the Charmed reboot, Scarlet Witch from WandaVision and the MCU. What makes witches so appealing and so popular?
I mean, I think it's just more on like society level of just like we all love different types of monsters. Like, because you see the resurgence all the time. You'll see like a new set of vampire stuff comes, a new set of werewolf stuff comes, and then a new set of witches. Like those very basic and general themes always continue continue to come back. I mean, with witches, you get a lot of different things because you get a little bit of nature, you get a little bit of the horror, you get a little bit of monsters, so you get a little bit of everything in there, and it ties back into like they're more of the human element of the monsters. Like werewolves, you have there's the human, then he turns into a beast and murders people. The vampire is less human and more monster, but looks like a human. Witches are humans essentially, and they look like humans, and they learn to work within their confines of like spells and different powers. So I mean, like I think it's just like there's a ton of people that love everything, and like I mean, if you like horror, you're gonna like either all of those things or specifically that one. And like so, witches is really, I mean, I guess it's every couple of years it's gonna be coming back.
Yeah, it's cyclical, and I think also with a unique angle with witches is that there's also a lot of great potential for like historical commentary, political commentary, Salem witch trials and all that stuff.
Yeah, and then that's actually like I bought these books before I did the Gretel witch hunter story, and it was actually all these witches in Pennsylvania. So I read through them, and I started pulling like there's actual like witch trials in Pennsylvania back when like William Penn was running things. He did the first witch trial in Pennsylvania, and it wasn't like a death sentence. It wasn't anything crazy, but it was cool like taking aspects of that and threading them throughout. Like even in like Bell Hearts and Minds. The one grave, the one woman they're talking about, and the one grave they're talking about is this woman who is like accused of being a witch. And while like the Continental Congress was in the Continental Congress doing their thing, they ignored that this woman was beat to death. Like as a witch, like it's crazy seeing how witches actually tie through society, and it's not really on the aspect of like, oh, they were fake. It's like, okay, like these were genuine times where we've accounted for witchcraft, and like, yeah, it might not be the same thing as like, all right, they're doing sacrifices or like using magical powers, but like there is witchcraft like embedded throughout our history, especially the United States, which is crazy.
And then, Zenescope style, we take a bit of that and just expand on it and
elaborate,
make it for some grisly entertainment.
Yeah, we take it and we fill in the gaps that aren't in history, and we fill in like this is what could have happened, or this might have been how it really happened, or like this is what we wanted to happen, and like so like we have a little fun with it, which is always cool, like because it's cool taking something that like people kind of have an idea about and then expanding on that and kind of giving them something new to take in, like, oh, that's really cool, or like, that's different. Like, I didn't think about it that way. And then that's always like, that's just the fun part of stories. And then especially with witches, because then you add powers and you add horror and then you add crazy fights, which are cool.
Speaking of stories, where do you want to see the future of Gretel and her journey go to? And is there anything for Gretel down the line in terms of future projects that can you tease, reveal at the moment?
Nothing that we can reveal at the moment. I mean, I definitely have ideas. I want to like pitch. We have a story meeting coming up, so I want to pitch some ideas there. But yeah, I mean, I think Gretel's story, it's really just the evolution of this character who was kind of almost stuck in time for 300 years. And now she's kind of not just like, oh, it's not growing in modern society, but it's growing as a person, as a half witch, half person, and kind of also discovering all the other dark corners of the United States that she hasn't found yet. So, I mean, we definitely have some ideas for things coming up. We can't talk about them yet because we don't know when we're going to bring them to fruition. But I mean, yeah, there's definitely some really like cool ideas that we can expand on that we most likely will coming up.
Awesome. I cannot wait. And I hope everyone listening, you're going to be on edge of your seat because Dave is a genius. So
no, he's not.
So I want to end the interview with one final, the most important question, I think. If you could have any witch's power and acquire it, like Gretel, what would it be and why?
I mean, that's tough because, I mean, like, they could technically, they're almost like superpowers. Mm-hmm. So, like, if I had a superpower, it would be like super speed. Because, but at the same time, if you want to just count to like witches, like, I mean, I don't know, I haven't really seen a super speed witch. I mean, we did in Bell Hearts and Minds, but like, I haven't seen one outside of that. But so either super speed or teleportation, mostly because I just want to be able to travel and see the world and see everything in it. Like, I like seeing everything. So like, that would be the purpose. It wouldn't be to like murder children or like, or like eat hearts. It would just be more like to see everything in the world before my time's up. So that's really it.
Yeah, just see the world. Learn more about more witches in like Japan or like Russia, and then come back and write in more stories, right?
Yeah, that'll work.
For me, I mean, I don't have a choice because my witch power was growing cat-like claws, and then I lost it because Gretel ripped out my heart in Bell Hearts and Minds.
Well, because that's a very dangerous power, and she didn't want to get scratched and get like tetanus or whatever disease comes from cat claws, rabies.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And like, yeah, she'll going to get infected. So like, she had to take your heart.
So in a way, I was the most dangerous witch of all.
Pretty much. She saved the world that day.
Beautiful. That went over your head. Dave was so nice to write me a cameo in Bell Hearts and Minds. I was killed.
Chris actually been murdered, and I gave him his wish.
Yeah. And by my favorite character. So I got to thank you for that.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Dave, thank you so much for coming by and sitting down, talking about Gretel. You gave us a lot of great info today, and thank you so much, and thanks for all that you do.
Well, thank you, man. Thank you for everything you do and having me on, and keeping us going with this.
Right on.
Thanks, man.
Cool. Well, thank you for listening, and back to you, Mark.
Thank you, Chris and Dave. If you'd like to learn more about Gretel, stop by Zenescope.com, and midway down the homepage, you'll see a section entitled Gretel 101. It's got Gretel issues 1 through 5, the Gretel graphic novel, Myths and Legends, and Grimm Universe Presents. Plus, don't forget to check out Grimm Fairy Tales Volume 1 to read how her story all began. For those listening for our podcast Word of the Month, the word for July is Calabar. C-A-L-A-B-A-R. Calabar is the mercenary Gretel teams up with to rid the world of witches. Moving ahead, let's take a look at some of the exciting events coming up on the Zenescope calendar for July 2021. First up, we've got 2 pre-sales running through mid-July. There's Grimmopoly, a twist on the popular board game where you can be one of your favorite Grimm characters, from Alice to Dorothy to Robin or Snow White. And if you haven't ordered your Man-Goat and the Bunny Man t-shirt, now's the time. You won't be able to get this limited shirt anywhere else. And speaking of Man-Goat and the Bunny Man, the final chapter in their first ever 3-part story comes to a close on July 7th. The epic adventures of Sky Mathers crescendo in Grimm Fairy Tales Volume 2, number 50, online and in comic stores July 14th. Robin Hood takes on Goldilocks. There's a new Grimm Tales of Terror called Game Night for all you Kyrus fans out there. Plus, the 2021 swimsuit special on July 28th, and the number 1 issue of Possessive, written by Adam Goldberg and Hans Rodionoff of the hit TV series The Goldbergs. I personally can't wait for this one. It's being touted as a mix of When Harry Met Sally and The Grudge. What a combo. The new metal comic, metal cards, serial cosplay, and sticker set have all been released for July and are available for subscription on Zenescope.com. We'll have a new Gretel metal mini art print and metal bookmark, a new coffee mug celebrating Grimm Fairy Tales number 50, a metal XL card set with a beach focus, and Don McTagg's Cyberpunk collectibles for July. These are quite possibly my favorite ones yet, with Red Riding Hood and the Wolf. Really amazing artwork. You'll be blown away. John Royals is our featured artist of the month, and that means new art prints, stickers, and metal cards, all by John Royals. And finally, we're going all out in July with a beach spectacular, a virtual con that rules them all. 4 whopping days of summer fun and festivities hosted by Ralph, Jason, Chris, and Amber. Lots of special guests, lots of collectible comics, prizes, games, and trivia. Join all the excitement on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. It's going to run Wednesday, July 21st through Saturday, July 24th. And don't be surprised if you get a little sand in your shoes.
Welcome back to another installment of Chris's Corner. Today, I'll be talking about the Gretel one-shot, Grimm Fairy Tales, Myths and Legends, Gretel, Witch Hunter. The 72-page issue features the return of Gretel and Calabar after the run-in with Belle during Belle Hearts and Minds. It follows the cliffhanger ending revealing a mysterious new villain, the Men in Black, branded and burnt and full of malice. Our story takes place in the wooded hills of Pennsylvania as Gretel and Calabar hunt down vicious tree ants and elementals commanded by a powerful witch of the woods. Despite defeating her, the celebrations are cut short with the mysterious appearance of a lone cabin in the woods harboring dark secrets from the past. The tortured past of the mysterious Man in Black, known only as the Warlock, who is hell-bent on building a new coven of witches. Naturally, the past of the Warlock and Gretel collide with the fate of humanity in The Balance. Written by Dave Franchini and backed up by an outstanding heavy-hitting team of artists and colorists, what unfolds in this story is a fantastic commentary of how no one is free of the past and their consequences. Both humanity and witchkind are bound to a constant cycle of revenge and destruction, hailing as far back as the Salem witch trials and beyond. It is also a fascinating story espousing that monsters are not born, they are made. And in the end, Gabriel the Warlock and Gretel are far more alike than they care to admit. Their artwork is crisp and clean, and unique art styles are used as an excellent framing device as the story moves between the past and the present. In particular, the artwork of the forest fight scene by Guillermo Fajardo and Ulysses Areola stands out for capturing and harnessing the energy and tension of a truly frenetic, emotive, and high-octane fight scene. Not unlike the dynamic storyboarding and action shots you'd see in a shonen manga, the section bleeds style, and it's definitely a highlight of the issue for me. All in all, this issue gets 5 out of 5 hexes and is among my favorites of the Gretel one-shots to have released so far.
If you'd like to grab a copy of Grimm Myths and Legends, Gretel Witch Hunter, hop on over to Zenescope.com under the section entitled Gretel 101. You'll find it there along with the entire Gretel catalog. Happy witch hunting. Now we turn to our featured guest, Mayling Ng. She's a black belt martial artist and fitness champion. She was the villain in Scorpion King, Book of Souls, an Amazon alongside Gal Gadot in Wonder Woman, a Russian convicted killer in Lady Blood Fight, and in next month's The Suicide Squad, she plays alien warlord Mongal. A true globetrotter, splitting time between Los Angeles, Europe, and Asia, I caught up with Mayling recently to discuss weapons training at her local gym, working with great directors like Patty Jenkins and James Gunn, and becoming the female version of Arnold Schwarzenegger. Here's what she had to say. And, I always like to start at the very beginning. You were born in the UK, but I read had spent some time in the Canary Islands as well as Singapore. Mm-hmm. And I was wondering what life was like for you growing up and what kinds of things you were interested in as a young girl.
It was a very, I traveled a lot as a kid. So between Singapore and Tenerife, as you say, my father went over there and did restaurants. And now all my brothers are over there with their own restaurants and portfolio of F&B, bars and clubs and restaurants, as I say. And I was really into martial arts. My brothers are really into business. I did a few restaurants myself, but as a child, I really loved martial arts and Jackie Chan, Bruce Lee, Jet Li. So even though I was in Tenerife and there wasn't any martial art clubs in there, sometimes when I was in England as a kid, I'd go to Kung Fu, but then I'd always keep changing different classes. And as I've grown and I've traveled many places, I've had to train in different styles, which has helped me in my film career. But all my family is still in Tenerife, is still in Canary Islands. It's a beautiful island. I will be going there as soon as I'm allowed to travel again and go and see them. I haven't seen them in like 2 years now, but usually I go back every year.
Wow. Mm. Are they still under lockdown or anything like that with restrictions?
Yeah, it's severe actually. I think they came out of it, they're doing really well, and then just this week they went into like lockdown 3 or something again recently because they don't have access to the vaccine like we do. So, and it got very good, but then I think a lot of the young kids went out and celebrated a bit too early, and they've had to go into lockdown again. So,
no,
it's like a Twilight Zone. I don't know. I think it's nuts right now what's going on. And my brothers are really stressed because, one brother has like 14 restaurants.
Yeah, I was going to say they probably are really impacted by that too.
Massively with the staff. And there's no tourism from England, which is the number one destination for England is Tenerife. So it's massive right now. It's like 70% or 80% or something. So.
It seems like as kids, you either follow in your parents' footsteps and their expectations, or you go in the exact opposite direction, which is kind of what I did. What were your parents' expectations of you, and how did that sort of translate into Hollywood actor and martial arts champion?
So we never thought this would happen. To be honest, my father's typical Chinese. He just wanted me to have get pregnant and have kids and be quiet, like just be like no nuisance. And so I did the exact opposite. I think I've been single like 10 years now. I've never been engaged, never been married, don't have any kids. And he just I'm every major disappointment for my father. I just laughed because he doesn't even want to see me in a movie or anything. He's not into No. I think someone showed him Wonder Woman once, and he couldn't watch. He gets really embarrassed. So it's just funny. Yeah. And my mother, she's just proud. She's proud that we all achieve, and we're all kind of, my brothers has the businesses, as I say, and I'm doing this, and she just can't believe that her kids are just smashing it and just like going for their dreams, regardless whether, the money or the status or whatever. As long as we're happy, it's good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's really all that should matter too. So
exactly, but it's the old Asian tradition. It's a family's really important, especially for the girl is usually submissive and quiet and stuff. And so I was the loudest and the biggest. And I'm like the heaviest and biggest and tallest. And I don't know. I'm like this rhino that just came out and was just like, I think because I'm Aries. I don't know. I just never did what was expected. I wasn't a bad kid. I was just really motivated.
Well, you once said you want to be the female Schwarzenegger, and I think I could have sworn I saw on Instagram a photo of you and Arnold at the gym, and I was wondering what about Arnold inspires you the most, and what were your impressions upon meeting him for the first time?
I think the first time I met him was about 3-4 years ago. He goes to my gym. Oh, I go to his gym, Gold's Gym Venice. And we spoke briefly about film, and he's like, you're like the female action star. I think I'm not like the, I've got more the Sylvester Stallone or the old action stars and back in the 80s and 90s where everything was like Rambo and Schwarzenegger and all of that.
Van Damme and... Yeah.
So I think I have a picture with all of those old school legends, and they just kind of laugh and just think I'm like, if I was there in the 80s, I could have been in a film with them. But they call me the female action star. When they're very nice, and they're very courteous when they do see me and stuff, and they're very encouraging. And Arnie's always great for giving tips and motivating, and because there's a lot of action now for females, but I think because I resemble something of I'm not a bodybuilder, I'm a figure, but in Hollywood terms, they'll call me a bodybuilder just because I have a bicep, But, usual bodybuilders are really, really a lot bigger and a lot stronger, but yeah.
When you're hired into a role, do the directors automatically expect you to do your own stunts and do all these action sequences? And is there any type of stunt you wouldn't do?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, usually they realize that I can do my own kung fu and my own fight scenes. I can do my own action and fight scenes and wire work, like in Wonder Woman. That was, that's all easy stuff. That's because I train in martial arts. So I understand the weapons, and it's like a dance, right? If you want to do a fight sequence together with that. But the real hard weapon, like the real hard stunts, is the ones where you actually fall. Especially with the girls, they have no padding because usually we're wearing less, or they're wearing a tight dress. There's nowhere to put the padding, so those girls are really gifted. Like if I felt like that, I'll break my neck. Like I'm not as talented as a stunt person. People keep saying to me, "Are you a stunt person?" And I won't take credit for that because I can do my own fights. I do martial arts, but I'm not as trained as these amazing strong girls. I won't do fire. I won't like car chasing, car driving, any water stuff. I mean, I'll go in the water and I'll do things, but there was a big drop in the water in one of my films coming up. And my stunt double, Courtney Chen, it was like 50 foot high. And I just looked at it and went, good luck. Because I'll do it if there was wires, I would do it. But when there's no wires, I'm like, okay, where's my stunt double? Yeah, I'm not brave as them. Like doing a sword and a fight scene is pretty easy if you know martial arts.
Oh, you have to have a particular mindset, I think, to be a stunt double. It takes a lot of courage, a lot of guts.
Yeah, I think she was actually, someone said that, she didn't, like, she was scared going up, but she still done it. I don't think she wanted to do it, but that's her job, so she just did it. Well, I'll be climbing on, holding onto the bar, and they'll have to like push me off because I'll be holding on to like any pole or anything to not go. But yeah, they're really brave. So I can, I did the fight scenes. You can get hurt. I've been hurt a few times. I did a horse. I did horse riding in Scorpion King, and the horse decided she no longer wanted me on her back, so she just flipped me off, and I was in a leather bikini. I was in that bikini that's over there.
Yeah, how about that?
Yeah, so I was in that only. But lucky enough, I mean, when I stood up, they were all like, "Wow, your stunt training really helped because you went." I was flying face first, and I didn't even know I was off. It was so quick. And apparently I twisted my body and landed on my hip to my shoulder, which had the one side that had the shoulder pad on it. I fell on that, and then my head. And then all the horses came over me, and then apparently I stood up, and I was like, adrenaline was going, and I was like, I can go again, but then I want to go home. And they were like, "You're going to hospital." You're going to hospital. So yeah, it's crazy. So that's it. Probably I probably wouldn't do that again. I wouldn't do horse riding again just because that was the last time I was on a horse, and it's been a few years now. So I don't know. If it's a real old, slow, fat and happy horse, I might get on. But no stallion like she was. No, I was so stallion. But like no big, black, beautiful thoroughbred like horse. No, I won't be doing that again because she just like flipped me off and I just went flying. So
they're super strong.
Yeah. And very unpredictable. That's the good thing about if you're on a motorbike or if you're on anything like that. It's your own kind of talent, your own skill that's going to jeopardize you. But with the horse, when it's not happy, you have no say in it. I mean, other people would have held on or seen it coming, but I was just oblivious. I had no idea. Yeah.
You talked a little bit about Wonder Woman earlier. Such an amazing film. You're doing, all of these stunts in it, which interestingly resulted in a SAG-AFTRA award for stunt ensemble, which is super cool. What was the experience like for you working on such a big budget film like that? And more importantly, what was it like working with such an amazing group of women like Patty Jenkins, Gal Gadot, and so many others on and off screen?
Well, for one, that was my one and only stunt contract. It was the only time I went on at stunts. And then fate had it that before I got there, Patty Jenkins actually chose me as a runner for that scene, that jump in the cliff scene. And all those other girls were there for like 3 months. I just got there like on the Monday. And before I even got there on the Monday, by Friday, I was already chosen. And then I arrived. And so that was just a blessing. And it was truly just something that I never knew that was coming. But apparently she liked my look. But it was really just a really encouraging set. It was every girl. I mean, even, for instance, if we went to the bathroom, because we're all in corsets, like it was just such a supportive group that there would be a circle of like maybe 8 Amazonians, and we're just like taking our corsets down in a row, like just helping each other wherever we could, because that was a battle, just the bathroom breaks, because we're in so much armor and corsets and leather, and we're on a beach and there's sand everywhere and it's hot. And the boots were up to here, and the corsets were down to there, and it was a battle, the costume itself. So when you had a bathroom break, we'd all just run, and then we'd all just be circles and stuff. And then afterwards, we'd all go to the catering and to get our food and for lunches. I think breakfast, lunch, and dinner was all at the same place, and it was like you'd go in and there's 100 Amazons sitting around table, and just everyone was, oh, do you have an ice pack for this? And do you have this and that? And everyone would just help each other out. It was really good. I still have some really good friends on my Facebook and on a WhatsApp group of all those girls I met over there. You know, it was
great.
It was great. There was no politics. There was hardly any men. There was just it was just girly fun. It was great. I mean, there was some Germans that we had to kill on the beach.
Right.
And and they were great, but there was for once it was mostly female led, so it was a great just a woman fest, you know. And Patty Jenkins was so supportive. She was one of the most supportive directors I've ever worked with. Like everything, she was like, "Come on, Arana!" You know, she was just like a big cheerleader, and she just was just always happy and brought out the best in everyone. So it was a great experience, and I saw her again at the premiere, and I couldn't thank her enough because she really helped with my green card as well, just because of what she did for me and what she believed in me. You know, she's amazing.
I love that. Now, transitioning away from that to the Suicide Squad, what can you tell us about that film, and how does your character fit into the story?
I can't really say too much, obviously. NDA'd up to the eyeballs. I mean, it's James Gunn, so you're in for a great treat. I would recommend that you do see it in theaters. I've seen a screening myself. I was lucky enough to go and get in, and I mean, I think it's just so entertaining that I wished I saw it now on IMAX, you know, because I just saw it on a normal screen. But it's mind blowing. It's really, really, it's just nonstop, and the pacing is so good. So you're going to be entertained for over 2 hours, and James Gunn's in James Gunn's mind, and my character, you know, she's Mongal. She's the daughter of a warlord, and she's tough, stubborn, malevolent, strong. I don't know. What else can I say?
and it's the first live action adaptation for Mongal, right?
Yes, it is. I'm very lucky that I bring her to life. Yes, yeah. I mean,
very special.
Very special. I mean, when I auditioned, I had no idea it was for her, and they just said creature, and I went in and I didn't. I kind of thought I messed up, but I think, and now I realize that, you know, she's Mongal. She's kind of like, she's intense, and I think I messed up, and I was like, oh my God, what have I done? But I was kind of probably giving it my intense look, and then I think that's what they saw, Mongal. And the original Mongal, like, she's yellow, she's got almond eyes and long flowing hair. She looks very similar, like, to me, and so I can see why the casting, why I came in for casting. So I'm just happy that I pulled it off at the audition process. But yeah, fantastic that I get to be the first Mongal.
People are constantly getting typecast into different roles, and I was wondering if you enjoy the action martial arts roles most, or like Arnold gradually evolved into comedy and coming of age and horror and independent projects?
So that's a great question. I really want to do comedy, because I grew up with lots of brothers, and I do kind of have I was born in England, and so we have dry humor, and I'm told I'm funny and I'm a bit goofy, but everyone thinks I'm serious and I'm hard because of the physique or whatever. But I mean, I'm being typecast right now, but as I've said before, I'm really happy just to be cast. Like, I'm really grateful. I can't come in and be like, oh, I want to be taken seriously now. And no, I'm just really happy to be working. I came here 5 years ago, and I met some people who are good friends still now. And, you know, they're really happy for me, but like, we were all struggling when we got here. So for me to get this break, I can't be like, oh, I'm doing the same roles. I'm just thankful that I qualified to be here. I got my green card for this process. And if I'm being typecast, at least I'm being cast, and I have to be grateful for that. But I would like to eventually transition into the comedy sides, you know. I'm Dave Bautista. He's a good mentor of mine and a good friend, and I love how his path has changed, you know. Now he's even taking, like, he's doing a lot of drama, and, you know, but he went from action to comedy, and he's doing drama. And I just look at him and I ask him for advice sometimes, and we actually share the same coach, acting coach. He gave me his coach here in LA, and yeah, I just look at him as a mentor and someone who I inspire to be. So I would love to go on the same path as that. We'll see. I mean, one thing I do have is I'm relentless. I go for it. I just keep going and going. And so I'm sure it'll come. I do have a drama coming up in September, The Journeyman, with Michael Bisping. And I actually play like a different role. She's a woman who fell into really hard times and she's troubled. But it's just it's a lot more gritty. It's kind of dark, but she is funny. It's a dark movie. It's a bit like The Wrestler or like The Rocky, you know. Yeah, it's one of those struggling fighters come back, and but she's the light in his life anyway. So it's.
What does your fitness routine look like on a regular basis? How often do you work out, and what kinds of nutrition and foods are essential?
Okay, so I work out every day. So I get up and I work out before breakfast. I lift as heavy as I can. For my body type, if I just do cardio, I just look like a smaller potato, like just a different, smaller version of what of the shape I was, which was heavy-legged and kind of like hot dog shaped. And then with weights and heavy lifting, and I'm totally natural, that I've sculpted my physique, as you say. Got a tighter core, brought out my delts, rounded my glutes. My quads were always big, so that's something I can't take down. So it's a lot of compound movements, and I'll do small accessories, like I'll do delts. I don't do arms, so I don't want bigger arms, but you get arms when you do pull-ups, when you do your back. So I do delts, back, and all my lower body. I do it every day, and I warm up with my weapons. So thankfully, Gold's Gym let me go in with my weapons, the smaller weapons, and I take a little corner and I'll go and warm up and do that instead of doing the treadmill, because I'm a girl that if I don't use it, I lose it. So I go in the corner, do a form of like nunchucks or a whip chain or something, like out of everyone's way, and then I'll go in and do weights, and then I'll come home and eat breakfast. I'll have a protein shake, and then I'll eat breakfast. And my nutrition. Okay, it sounds very complicated, but it's not. So I'll base my protein on each pound of body weight. I'll do a gram of protein, and then whatever fats and carbs I have left for the calorie intake that I'm allowed to have for the certain role I'm going for. Sounds complicated, but it's not. It's 60% carbs and 40% fats of what's remaining from the protein. So I do a macro diet. So I can eat basically what I want as long as it fits in my numbers that day. So I don't like all this pre-prep food and like tilapia and cold broccoli. I'd rather come home, eat some whatever I want and leaner version so I can have more of it. I don't want to eat a cake and a burger and then I'm starving the rest of the day. I'll eat different variations of lower calorie food just to fit into my numbers. And that way I can take this body to a film set in a different country and maintain it in that costume, which I've had to do many times because I do have a very slow metabolism. So I'm a bit of a truffle shuffler. And so I have to really kind of watch and monitor. Otherwise, I might wake up one day and be like, I can't get this costume on. It can happen, especially with sets. They don't let you, you can't train as much. And the hours are long. And sometimes you wrap really late and come in really early. And so you have to maintain, the only control you do have is your nutrition.
You mentioned something about taking weapons into the gym. I work out at a local gym here, and I just have to ask, like, when you do that, does it draw a crowd? I mean, I don't do it in front of
people, to be honest. I kind of like do it on the edge of the car park in a corner. Like, I don't do like the whole gym, but it depends. What also, if I'm doing a movie that requires me to be quite agile and fast and responsive,
sure,
I'll brush up a bit more and things like that. If I'm just doing I'm doing a fight scene, then I'll do a lot of my forms and stuff. And I just do it secretly in the corner. It doesn't take up much space because the weapons I do bring into the gym fit into my bag, And then I'll go and do Shaolin Kung Fu with my team. We'll do that 2 or 3 times a week in Santa Monica in a park or in the studio. And I train with them mostly, and we go through every weapon. So black belt, you get like 8 weapons, and now we're on to the 9th and 10th of the 18 Shaolin weapons. But yeah, we go and do that together, but I'll probably just go and train one in a gym.
What would you consider to be your specialty?
Weapon?
Yeah.
I don't know if you can you, there's like 4 Guandals over there, like 7-foot swords. So they're like it's a 7-foot sword. That's what got me. That was a part of my green card process because I had not many. So in Singapore, I started training with a different Sifu and a different kung fu style. And when he saw me, he looks at you and he imagines your weapon for your personality. And he gave my German friend 2 little daggers that fit into a handbag. And then he comes to me and he gives me a 7-foot pole with a big blade on it. And I was like, Sifu, I get the bus to class in Singapore. I get the bus to class. I can't go on the bus with this Guandao. And he's like, this will make you. And it was true. I because not many women in Asia use the full size Guandao, just because the females are smaller and lighter. And because I was strong, the real Guandaos can be 20+ pounds, and you're doing an overhead press and you're spinning it above your head. So he was like, you're so strong and you're tall for Asian. So because it's 7 foot, when I spin it, it doesn't hit the ground. Where a lot of girls, if you're small and you spin it, they're going to clank on the ground. But mine skims past and I can carry on. And so it made me, and I done some fight scenes with that and some videos with that. And it's, I got black belt certified with it. And, it went towards one of my talents, alien, extraordinary abilities or something. It was my grandpa. Yeah. My 7-foot sword, really. Apparently, it was something that you guys need. I don't know.
Last question for you. You already sort of mentioned one, but what other current projects are you working on? What's up next for you?
Well, I did do Legend of the Dragon. I still have a couple of days left on that. That's the Power Ranger spin-off. Well, it's the Green Ranger, Jason David Frank. He's doing this new movie, Legend of the White Dragon, with this company that does Bat in the Sun. So they got loads of fans and loads of hits on YouTube, and then they did a Kickstarter, and all their fans just loved them so much. They gave them money to do it the first feature. It's incredible what they did. And they reached out to me on social media, and I was just like, yeah, speak to my manager, because you get a lot of that. And they did, and I went on, and it's a fantastic production, and the director's super talented. He can do amazing things on the budget that he has. It's amazing. And but this was a big feature, and it was really good what they pulled off. And I fight with Jason David Frank, the Green Power Ranger. So I just did that, and I play Lieutenant Tech Bow. And then I go on to do Journeyman with Michael Bisping, a film written and directed by Dax Phelan.
Mayling Ng can be seen in The Suicide Squad, which releases next month on August 6th. And if you'd like to check out some of her previous films, look no further than Wonder Woman, as well as The Scorpion King, Book of Souls. And if you're like me and loved Jean-Claude Van Damme in Bloodsport, a true cult classic, you have to check out Lady Bloodfight. Mayling is one of the competitors in the fight competition you'll recognize as the Kumite. Before we wrap this edition of Everything Zen, I'm going to turn it over to Amber for some Van Helsing fun facts for July.
Hiya friends, Fun Facts Guru Amber here. Since the final episode of Sci-Fi's Van Helsing just aired in June, I'd like to highlight the inspiration for the show, our own Liesel Van Helsing. Her origin story comes from Pat Shand and Raven Gregory, who was pitching a male Van Helsing character. His origin story would be featured in Shadowlands that would eventually tie into our Unleashed series. Ralph suggested Van Helsing be female instead, thus Liesel was born. Under the direction of the team, Anthony Spey designed the original Van Helsing as a steampunk character. This was followed up by J.B. Tyndall, who did the first ever Van Helsing cover off Anthony's design. Since then, we've had a few different Van Helsings, including Liesel, Elijah, Masumi, and now Abraham Jr., who recently made his multiverse appearance in Grimm Universe Presents Quarterly, Steampunk. She's been in our universe for almost a decade, defeated countless monsters, battled Robin Hood, is BFFs with our own Sela, and continues to be one of our most popular characters, selling over 1 million issues. Congrats again to Sci-Fi for a 5-year run, and here's to more vampire slaying in the future. Erg, arg. Oh wait, wrong vampire show.
And that'll bring this edition of Everything Zen to a close. Special thanks to Chris, Amber, and Dave Franchini, as well as our featured guest, Mayling Ng. I'm your host, Mark Sells. Thank you for listening. As the Zac Brown Band eloquently sings, I got my toes in the water, ass in the sand, not a worry in the world, a cold beer in my hand. Happy summer, everyone. We'll see you all again next month, right here on Everything Zen.